I always find that music so zen-like. Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining us for our latest episode of Korn Ferry Live. As you all know by now, during these sessions, we'll be talking about the topics that have the biggest impact on business leaders like you. It's always a great opportunity for me to learn something new, and I think you might too. Today's topic is all about purpose. What is it? Do you have one? Do you even need one? So before we jump into that, I want to hear from you. How many of you have a purpose? Just put a simple yes or no in the chat. I'm just really interested to see the numbers because it was only very recently that I created one. So don't feel bad if you've got a no, that's all fine. I'm imagining there'll be more no's than yeses, but I might be proved wrong and we'll come back to those numbers in a minute. And if you do have a purpose, what is that? Once again, put that in the chat. Really interesting. We'll be sharing some that we talked about a few weeks ago internally at Korn Ferry, and be interesting to see how they compare. So please use the chat. And of course, as usual, any questions you have for me and my guest, please get them in as well. So on with the show. As always, I'm your host, Darren Bolton, Chief Creative Officer here at Korn Ferry. And today I'm joined by a very special guest, Dr. Margie Worrell, Senior Client Partner with Korn Ferry and a global authority on courageous leadership. She's also a best-selling author, an acclaimed speaker, amongst many other things, which I'll get into shortly. So Margie, welcome to the show.
Great to be with you, Darren. Thanks for having me along.
Lovely to see you. Lovely to see you. Okay, let's dig straight in. So you're a best-selling author, a keynote speaker, a leadership coach, a media commentator, a podcast host, a Forbes columnist, a women's advocate, plus you're a regular visitor to the White House, so much so you've got your own front door key, I believe. So, Margie, give me something here. At the very least, something to cure my inferiority complex. Is there anything you can't do? What are you rubbish at? I want something juicy. Give us all hope, Margie. What is it?
Thanks for putting me on the spot. What am I hopeless at? Well, I would say that I am not the most brilliant technician with technology. I'm actually really masterful at being able to mess things up in ways that leave even the IT people scratching their heads. So there you go.
Brilliant. Well, I'll take that. We'll take whatever we get. Because I'm not sure I can keep up with your prowess. But anyway, we will crack on. So this idea of purpose, it's certainly become more visible, more popular in recent times. And to be fair, it can be a little bit confusing and sometimes a little bit intimidating. So maybe you could kind of kick off with what is a purpose, both personally and professionally, and why is it so important? Why do we need one?
Well, I think of purpose as something that gives our lives meaning. It is something bigger than ourselves, at that it is not a goal to be achieved. So sometimes I think people think, oh, is it a goal that I either achieve it, I either succeeded it or not? It's actually really a cause to be pursued. So regardless of the results we may be producing, we can be still in purpose, on purpose in our lives. And I think a lot of people find themselves, Darren, getting intimidated around this idea of purpose. They're like, they often think of, am I supposed to be ending world hunger or finding a cure to cancer? And we think of these very lofty, noble causes, but actually all of us can find purpose in our everyday lives, regardless of what we may be doing. And it is about really doing a lot of self-reflection. It comes from within ourselves and connecting to, often it lies in the intersection of, what is it I'm naturally good at? What are my talents? What are my strengths? What is it I love to do? What is it that I find that I find that there's, I feel a passion around, because, you might be good at math, but if you don't love doing it, you're probably not going to be feeling like you're in your purpose. And where is there a need that I can fill? And, that can be something as simple as just through the connection and our relationship with the people around us too.
Great. And I don't know if it's just me, but the idea of purpose seems to be quite a recent thing. I mean, did we not always have a purpose, or do we just have this need to sort of label ourselves or label something to give us gives us almost like that reason to achieve it, I guess. So why now? What's changed?
Well, I think if you think, I don't know how familiar you are with Maslow's hierarchy of needs. At the very base foundational level is the need for shelter for survival. And for a long time, that's where we've had to focus our attention until more recent times in human history. At the highest level is self-actualization. And then there's various ones in between. But I think as we have, even though we might not feel like our lives are safer today than they were, but actually most people, well, probably the people watching this, we don't have to worry every day of whether we're going to be eaten by a predator. But it's like we want meaning and purpose that's bigger than mere survival. Animals, mere survival. But we as humans want to feel like our lives count for something beyond merely getting through. And so I think as we as humans have sort of evolved, we're looking for what is something that brings me a sense of meaning in my everyday life and in what I'm doing with my life. And obviously our careers and what we're doing professionally is a big part of our lives. We spend a lot of our lives engaged in what we might call work.
Sure. And I think that if we just divert away for a few seconds, we were on a call, I think it was about a month ago or maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, with a lot of Korn Ferry folks, and we asked them what their purpose was. And there was a huge spectrum of ideas, which kind of backs up exactly what you've just been saying. And I think we can share that. Is that going to come on screen now? Oh, well done. We're getting slicker. I like this. So just if we read for a few of those, connecting the world of ideas with the power of people, do the right things and do things right, demonstrate and spread kindness, help all people in life become better. I like that. Better today than yesterday. Be a messenger of opportunity for all, push people toward a greater joy, to be a good and authentic friend, manager, and teammate, which I liked. And there are a few others as well that were interesting, like there's one that's about raising my kids to be the best version of themselves, or awaken others to be happier. So that was great. So I guess, Margie, how do we figure out what our purpose is? You've already answered this one, does it have to be a huge changing idea, or can it be something simple? And I think we certainly saw that mix from the Korn Ferry team when we asked that question.
Yeah, well, if you just that list that you put up, and I hadn't seen that list before, but a lot of the things on that list were in regard to our relationship with other people, the impact we have on other people. We want to help other people be better today than they were yesterday. We want to raise good humans into the world. And so, there was also some around ideas, but at the core of all of that is, how do we make the world a better place? And you don't have to be coming up with some, transformational technology or cure, etc., to make the world a better place. We make the world a better place simply by the impact we have on people in our daily interactions. Just a few words of encouragement to someone can help us feel like we are making the world better. But I want to just say that I really believe our purpose evolves as we do. And what may give you a sense of purpose when you're 20 and you're at university or college and you're studying, it could be, just learning and growing and connecting and building, a big social network. That can be different when you're in your 30s and you're raising children and you're juggling maybe your career with that. And then 40s and 50s, when we start to focus more on legacy and, what is it that will be left behind one day. And so I think we have to give ourselves permission to not know exactly what our purpose is, but to be just in that place of reflection going, what is it that makes me feel more alive and like what I'm doing every day matters? And, when I was in my early 20s and late teens, I had a bunch of jobs, and I use the word jobs. They paid the bills. They allowed me to save money to do other things I wanted to do, to travel. I didn't go to work every day going, wow, I'm living my purpose. I worked at one stage in a frozen food factory sorting pieces of corn. I didn't go, gee, this is what I'm meant to do. But this is giving me funds so that I can do other things. And so I think as we go along, you don't have to be doing something every day that you go, this is my purpose, but are you growing? Is it moving you towards something? Is it helping you evolve in who you are in a meaningful way?
Yeah. It's funny, and actually looking at those examples from Korn Ferry, and I was talking to my wife yesterday about this whole point, and she's a teacher and she's going, I have a purpose every day teaching children and I want to see them advance and grow. And it got me thinking, I mean, can you have multiple? Can you have a work one, a home one, a parenting one, a friends one? And when's it all become, the list is too long and then starts to become unachievable? So can you have multiple?
I think there can be many different ways we can feel purposeful in our lives. So, your wife's a great example. Teaching children, wow, there's so much purpose we can get from that. And I have 4 children myself. I get immense purpose from that. But that's one aspect of it. And I think if we zoom up, actually, you'll find that all of those purposes, probably there'll be an umbrella purpose that under which they all sit. And so I think we can live our purpose in different domains of our life in different ways. But I would say that it's important in terms of our work, that our work, what gives us purpose at work, is also congruent with our personal purpose, that there's alignment there. And, I once heard, you might have heard this little kind of parable 1,000 years ago. They went up to these guys that were on a construction site in medieval England and said, what are you doing? The first guy. And he said, oh, I'm just chipping away on a piece of stone. And they said to the second guy, what are you doing? And he said, I'm chipping away to make a perfectly symmetrical piece of stone block. And then they said to the third worker, what are you doing? And he said, oh, I'm building a cathedral that will still be standing in 1,000 years. And so it's the same activity, but it's the lens through which we see it. And the more modern one was the janitor working at NASA headquarters. I'm helping get a man on the moon. So I think, we may be doing something that doesn't feel like I was put on earth to do this, but how can we look at it through a lens of how it adds value and how it serves something that's bigger than just ourselves?
Brilliant. Now, everyone's been a bit shy in the chat, so don't remember. All you had to put was yes or no if you've got a purpose. Don't be shy. Put it forward. I know there's a couple of coming through, but I'll come back to those in a minute. Oh, no, I won't. I'm going to come to them straight away. So here's one. My purpose: awaken and support individuals in developing their consciousness and their potential to impact relationships, business, society, and the planet. Well, that's a good one. Yeah, it's a good one. Feels a big one here. It feels a big one. I like it.
Yeah.
How do you identify or find your own purpose? And I think that's an important question. I think the other thing we were looking at was, can this unlock your potential, and how can purpose play that role in that, which is really important, because at Korn Ferry we're all about unleashing potential, and purpose seems to be one of those key ingredients to make that happen. So a little bit of
I think purpose is a transformational force for value creation in ourselves and in others. And when we are on purpose, it by default will unleash our potential in ways that it might not otherwise. And here's why. We're wired as humans for safety, for self-preservation, not for self-actualization. And our purpose gives us a compelling reason why. It's our why I need to put myself out there, why I need to do something that, frankly, my fear of failure or fear of awkwardness might be directing me not to do. And so I think it's really important just to recognize that, there are forces working against us living into our purpose, and that's why it can be such a valuable exercise to get clarity on what you want to stand for that's bigger than self-protection, self-preservation, image management. But I think when it comes to potential, we humans live in usually a pretty restricted circle of our own potential. And anchoring ourselves to something that's bigger than us gives us a reason why we're going to go the extra mile, why we're going to take the harder path, why we're going to speak up, why we're going to roll our sleeves up and do extra work. And I think in terms of our potential, what is it that holds our potential hostage? So often it's that force of fear of like, oh, what if I try and I fail? Yeah. And I think it also keeps us from languishing. A lot of people live in the land of languishing. It's that middle middle child between flourishing and depression, and purpose gives us a reason for being. But you said, how do we find it? And I think our purpose will always connect to our natural strengths and talents in some way, something that we're innately good at, that we were good at before we ever got trained in it, and our training may have honed it. But also, if you think about what gives you energy, you are going to, when you're living in your purpose, it's giving you energy. It doesn't mean you're not tired sometimes, but it's making you feel more alive.
Yeah.
And so, and also, of course, it's adding value for others. As I said, it's a very transformational force for value creation and unlocking potential beyond ourselves too.
Great. We've got another purpose that popped in the chat, apparently. You want to flash it on screen this time, team? Drum roll. Okay. My purpose, working hard and building on clearer days so that I can sleep calmly through storms. Oh, I like that one.
Oh, yes. I love the imagery of that one. So thank you. Thank you, Manny.
Bring it to life. So next question is, and this kind of ties into the organizational side of it. So how is your own personal purpose aligned to an organizational's purpose? How do they kind of connect or overlap?
One of the reasons that I decided to join Korn Ferry as a senior partner working in the CEO Institute and working with very senior leaders in large organizations was because Korn Ferry's purpose to unlock the potential in people and organizations aligns with my own, which is also about unlocking potential. My purpose is to really help people live into their highest purpose. And so for me, there was a very congruent fit there. And it helped me grow and learn and develop and scale my own impact and potential. And of course, all of us are different. That's my story. But I think for anyone listening, there's different ways we can find that alignment, but looking at what you're doing and in what way, even in our purpose, is our own growth. Sometimes we're in roles we don't always like. There may be aspects of them we dislike. But are you growing? Are you learning? Are you becoming a better version of the person you want to be? And even in that, and sometimes in adversity, difficulty, those situations we would never have chosen, we can actually discover purpose and grow in ways we never would if everything was just going perfectly the way we wanted. So I think in every situation we're in, and sometimes in the toughest situations, there's this silent invitation for us to discover purpose in our lives in ways that we wouldn't if there weren't the stormy times.
Yeah. Because I was going to ask about that kind of alignment, because it feels like I was trying to figure out how important it is for my purpose and the organizational purpose to be aligned, and not necessarily so much that, but almost when it's not aligned, what's acceptable and how far apart isn't acceptable. But I guess that will all come down to the individual. We can't really tell someone what is and what isn't, I guess.
Well, I think it depends on there's a lot of context in there and circumstance, right? When I worked in the frozen food factory, I didn't think about, is my purpose aligned with this? I'm like, I'm getting something from this, which I know over time is going to help me to open doors and grow and have experiences that are meaningful. And so sometimes we may be in a situation where we're not fully aligned, but okay, right now, I'm not incongruent with my values that I choose to be here, but maybe as I look up at the medium-term horizon, I need to start looking out at organizations that would be more aligned. And we know from the research that people today want to work for purpose-driven organizations. And so people who feel like they are working for a purpose, an organization whose purpose aligns with them, their values align, there's congruence there, they're going to be more engaged, they're going to perform better, there's higher retention, there's stronger performance. And so for people who are in leadership roles, continually a key role of leaders is to helping galvanize everyone behind a common cause, to having everybody feel like their role is important in a cause that's bigger than themselves. And organizations that ignore that, they do so really at their peril. People want to feel like they're part of something that's bigger than themselves. And I think that need accelerated and was really exacerbated during the pandemic.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to go off on a tangent now. So I'm yet to mention the elephant in the room. You all may have noticed Margie has a very unusual accent. That's because she's, I think, what they call Australian. And folks around the world might not know that I'm English. And the English have an interesting relationship with our Aussie friends, mostly around cricket. And just to explain cricket for our Americans out there, cricket's a sport where a single game can last up to 4 or 5 days and often end in a draw, which I know is madness to you Americans. I know it's crazy. So, Margie, have you heard of the term Bazball?
No.
That's fine. That's fine.
Okay.
So, for Margie and everyone else out there, it's the name given to a style of play the English cricket team have kind of embraced recently. It's about being positive, always being on the attack, being brave, going for the win, not trying to hold back runs, but trying to take wickets, which is great when it's working, but it doesn't seem to be working anymore and hasn't worked for a while. So the question for you, Margie, is when is the right time to pivot and change your course or your purpose? Should you just stay rooted on your purpose because it's what you believe in, or is it okay to flip-flop?
Well, I would just push back on you there with the implication that Bazball is a purpose. It's a strategy. The purpose is to be the highest performing team and to win, right? That's the purpose. Yeah. The strategy was this a particular Bazball approach, which I don't obviously follow cricket closely enough to know that. But I would say this, our purpose doesn't necessarily change. How we pursue it can absolutely change, you know. So I think there's a big distinction there. And when it comes to pivoting, you know, there's a term called sunk cost bias, which is the tendency we have to keep investing in a course of action based on what we've already invested in it. And so I would just say sometimes we're in a hole and it's not working and we keep digging as though it's going to make it better. If you're in a hole, stop digging. If continuing to invest in something is not turning things around, sometimes the bravest thing to do and the most purpose-driven thing to do is to say, this isn't working. I'm going to step back. I'm going to reassess, and maybe there's a wiser path for me to go down. There's a better strategy, and maybe that strategy worked once, but it's not working now.
Cool. Great, that's great. And off the back of that, could you go through maybe some of the obstacles we might all face, and maybe how we could tackle those? And actually, once again, for everyone out there, if there are any of those kind of like challenges you come across, put them in the chat. Let's get them in there. But I certainly think, you know, building off that, we'll all come across those obstacles. And sometimes, like you say, it's how do you get through them? How do you get past them?
Well, I would firstly just say that when it comes to purpose and our challenges, often we get attached to how we think something is supposed to happen. Well, if I recently had a woman contact me and she worked for a nonprofit and she gave her heart and soul to it. And she really believed her vision for it and what she was driving was right. And she was laid off. And she was utterly disillusioned because she felt this was her life's work and mission. And she lost her job because the board didn't agree and others didn't agree. And so she was like, how could this be? I was living my purpose. And sometimes we can become a little blinded. We can become so one-eyed and narrow in our idea of how things are supposed to be. So I would firstly just say, just be careful that you're not making assumptions of how things are supposed to be. You actually, none of us have a monopoly on wisdom. Secondly, I would also say that our challenges, a phrase I love is life doesn't happen to you, it happens for you. And those situations that challenge you and test you the most often teach you the most. We don't grow when life's just going along exactly the way we want it to be. We grow when curveballs come out, when the rug gets pulled out from underneath us, when stuff happens that we aren't prepared for, and it forces us to look within ourselves and to often dig deeper into resources and resilience we mightn't have had otherwise. And so if you're watching this now and you're feeling really challenged and you're feeling like this isn't how it's meant to be, well, maybe there's actually a higher purpose for your life, and this is exactly how it's meant to be, for you to learn and grow and into the person that you're meant to become for even bigger things. And this is actually preparing you for that.
And you kind of touched on it anyway, but what part does courage play? I know that's a big area of your expertise. What, you know, how do we tap into the courage?
Well, I view, if you think of as a figure eight that's sitting on its side, courage and purpose is a virtuous cycle. They feed each other. Courage needs purpose to give it fire, and purpose without courage isn't going to do anything. It takes courage to live into our purpose. It takes courage sometimes to pivot and change our strategy and our approach. And courage is the decision to take action in the presence of our fear and risk, real or perceived, in pursuit of something, of a worthy goal, which can be purpose. And there's many times we might not feel like doing something. We're like, I don't want to have to speak up. I don't want to have to push forward this agenda, etc. But I know I'm not being true to myself. I know I'm not being true to my purpose and what I care about and my values if I don't do it. And it takes courage. It's not a feeling, it's a decision. And I think that in order for us to live our purpose, to lead with purpose, and leaders are far better leaders and more impactful leaders when they are anchored in purpose. It actually helps to fuel our courage sometimes in those moments when we most feel like holding back, and it actually gives us that fire to push through.
That's great. Well, as usual, we're running out of time. We could go on for hours on this sort of thing, but it's been brilliant. But I just wondered if there's any final thought you kind of like want to leave our listeners with, something they could say that's really kind of useful for them to kind of go away and action.
I would simply ask you to think about, what is it that makes you come alive and feel more true to yourself, and what could you be doing more of? It doesn't mean you wholly change what you're doing, but what could you be doing more of in your day that makes you feel more alive and like you're helping to actually make things better for others as well?
Fantastic. That's great thing to finish on. So thank you very much, Margie. You've been absolutely great. Sorry about the Mickey taking. Hope you're okay with that. I'm sure you are. I know you are. You're fine. That was super helpful. And actually, there's some really practical things in there as well. So that's great for our viewers. So thank you very much. Goodbye. Hope to see you soon. And as always, thank you all for joining us today. I hope you all feel inspired enough to go and find your own purpose. And if you want more insights into how to unleash the potential in your people, you'll see a link in the chat, I hope. That will take you to our potential code page, where you can not only find more information on purpose, but also the other 5 elements that today's most successful companies are embracing to crack the code. Once again, a quick reminder to share these sessions with your colleagues. And if you have any ideas of future topics you'd like us to cover, please put that in the chat. We're always looking to make sure that this information and content is as relevant as possible for all of you out there. But sadly, that is it for today. I'm off to fulfill my purpose. So for now, goodbye.